Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter, your Consciousness Transformation Ascension Guide, bringing you this week's Living the Shift. And this week I want to talk about the weight game. And it's funny if you listen to it in synonym terms, right? The weight game. It's not done by accident. However, we tend to get, it's funny. There's so many things that we talk about in terms of, being happy, unhappy with our physical bodies, being happy with our weight, being unhappy with our weight, wanting to gain, wanting to lose. And really, a lot of the lessons have to do with self-loathing, have to do with self-criticism. And we have created this whole perception. First of all, we have created this whole perception that is a distraction here in the 3D where we put so much weight, on our weight. And it's so and then we put our value on whether, what we weigh, we put our how much we love ourselves, how sexy we feel, how comfortable or uncomfortable we feel with our body based on what the scale says, based on what society says. And it's funny how as we look through things culturally, right, over centuries and eons, there have been very different periods, different periods of time have dictated very different, body types as being the most desirable, right? And so, yes, is it a majority of women? Yes, it is not all women, but because it is some men and there are some expectations on the men's level. But and I can talk about that and the cultural implications and sociological expectations and norms and all that kind of stuff. But what I really want to get to is the consciousness side, right? So there's several steps that are so important in terms of a weight gain or loss, or where we are in our weight, where we are in the way we feel about our bodies. And, it sounds cliche to say, oh, well, you love yourself, love your body. And yet we have also put a whole bunch of judgment against that. We've put a whole bunch of judgment in the idea of, if I don't weigh this much or this little, or if I'm not this size, then I'm not worthy of being loved. So therefore I don't love myself. And we have that time and time again, and it drives us. Look at our society, look at everything, look at the supplements that are out there and the commercials, and how much weight we put on, in terms of what your weight that are relative in many situations. And there's no one tried and true thing. So, ultimately, there's a couple of things that have come to me in consciousness over the years. Number one, here's the thing. I've gone through that myself. And I have been going through a period of, getting like not getting ready. I was getting ready or being ready to shed some excess weight that had accumulated. And had nothing to do. So here's the thing. And I've worked with many over the years about this. And what I always say, which we discount because we have this perception again of our values based on what this number is. And oh, well, everybody should be this weight, where there's no everybody. Our bodies are so individually made based on what we created to experience in this lifetime, right? So what I've talked about in health-wise, without even talking about weight specifically, health-wise, we have gotten lost in the symptoms, right? We talk about that in Western medicine, especially. We get lost in the symptoms and appeasing, good morning, Sandra, and appeasing the symptoms versus looking at the core underlying issue. Well, that's so in energy work and energy healing and consciousness work, that's what we do in focusing on illness and injury and chronic illness and, all kinds of limitations, debilitating, chronic things like allergies and stuff like that. And those are all symptoms, right? When we look at all that in terms of the bigger picture of wellness, and we get to the core underlying issue of what based energy, the fear, the anxiety, the anger, the guilt, doubt, sorrow, shame, blame, all that kind of stuff. What is it that we're doing, that we're holding to cause those physical symptoms in our body? Because our bodies are our biggest message boards and reminders for us from a expanded level of consciousness. So weight is exactly the same thing. Good morning, Gloria. And so we get lost on that, because then it's like, oh, well, I should be this weight, I should be this size, I just don't like my body. And it's like, well, more times than not, when I dig into that with others, it's getting to a place of what other people think, right? It's what culture thinks, what society thinks. And I'm like, well, so if it has gotten to a place of discomfort for you, then that's where we start looking, right? Where's the discomfort? And is it an ego thing, or is it truly something that your expanded consciousness is pushing on you for, right? So the first step that I always go to in terms of weight, and when we talk about that, is, yeah, well, it's interesting because weight then causes a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's weight in itself, like too little or too much for the what they call the happy weight of a person. And I'm not talking about a BMI chart or anything else. I'm talking about where a person feels completely comfortable and at ease as themselves in their physical body, which no matter what that weight is, for some people that never happens. And that's why we look at these core underlying issues. So when we look at the core underlying issue of that, right, we get to this understanding of, okay, so why is that a deviation, or what is it that we're holding or not holding or denying ourselves, right? So I'm talking both ends, because I've known people who have been way too thin to be healthy, right? Have lost and lost and lost and lost and lost weight, and sometimes for no apparent reason, right? With all kinds of tests and nothing comes up, and they're weak and they're sick and whatever. Then there's an underlying core, non-physical, energetic reason that they're not allowing themselves to be nourished. They're not allowing themselves to be vibrant, right? That they don't feel like they deserve to be. They deserve to be punished or to be limited by that lack of energy, lack of nourishment, because we have built these bodies to be interrelated with the whole of the environment that we're in, right? So we've lost, in many cases, the interrelation. We've lost the understanding of natural interrelation. There is a food chain, and I talk to, like, many come to me and they say, well, should we talk about, should I be vegan? Okay, what is your body telling you, right? I'm not going to tell you anything through judgment. That's not my place. And judgment is ego based, right? So there's just as many arguments or judgments for or against any kind of eating patterns or whatever, if you choose to, right? So when we get to that discussion, though, it's like, okay, so what are you doing, right? What is the cause? So let's look at, first of all, your self-love. Self-love is a big one. And we start working on that first and foremost. And I'll tell you why. Because weight represents so many things, right? So when we talk about getting overweight or underweight, we talk about, yeah, like I was talking about, even the one that's severely underweight, that goes, I'm not deserving of nourishing my body. I don't deserve that. I deserve to be punished. I deserve to be limited in that way. It's the same on both ends of the scale when we get too thin or too heavy, right? Where our body starts becoming impeded, right, and uncomfortable. But there are so many things that we play on in terms of weight, as I've discovered over the years, with consciousness. And so, like, it's, what are you carrying? A lot of times we carry stuff around in our physical bodies as weight to protect ourselves, to shield us, to hide us, right? Because we're afraid of being our authentic self. We believe that that we're not worthy to do that. We believe that we need to be weighed down. We have a belief in the laws of physics that say that as I come into higher or expanded consciousness, that I need to anchor myself more into this physicality, which is a really common thing for, and happened to me definitely, as in terms of consciousness and expanding our, consciousness and raising our vibration, because then there's that duality balance of, oh no, I have to weigh myself down, right? So it's funny because over the years, whenever anyone says, oh, I have to ground myself, I'm like, oh, that just feels so heavy and weight trodden, versus just connecting at all levels, the whole thing in flow, knowing that it's all interrelated. Again, it's the flow of interrelation versus forcing a certain relation, right? To say, oh, I have to be grounded on earth or I have to be grounded here in my body. It's like, well, no, you have to be connected. The thing is to be connected in your body and connected in your other levels of consciousness. But we hold these beliefs at these really deep levels of consciousness that, oh, I have to balance that. Or I have to hide myself because where I've been authentic and I have been, mutilated or killed or punished in one way or another. Many who, so just very factually, excuse me, there are many I have worked with who have been abused, sexually assaulted at different points in their life, who've made it a habit to then carry around excess weight, and that's to hide themselves, right, to shield themselves. And there's a belief in there sometimes, often deep down, that if I add this excess weight, it's like a blanket, and then nobody's going to want to assault me again, right? Because it's an unresolved pain, an unresolved resistance that's underneath, that's still to be resolved, forgiven, and apologized and completed, right? So they can move on. So yes, gloriousness also becomes an armor to keep you safe, all very unconscious. Exactly. And so there's all these different things. And sometimes it's literally, oh, I have to wait, right? These things like these synonyms in our head. Or, like having to weight ourselves down. Yeah, keep us anchored. So we go through all of these different things, right? So, and there are so many reasons. And like I said, I've worked with many, including myself, and there's so many different reasons that I've come across for that, right? So the key is yes, to be working on that, to be focusing on that internally, on looking inside, looking in the mirror, saying, so what am I hiding from? If it's excess, what am I denying myself from? If it's in depletion, right? And some people say, oh, well, I can't help it, I have anorexia, or the other extreme. Well, it all comes, you can help it. That's what causes it to begin with, right? There's a cause for everything, and the key is to get to the cause. And we've gotten into this habit of not looking at the cause, right? So in doing the work that I've done, like that's what we do, is we dig down to get to the cause. And sometimes it takes a while because, as Gloria said, it can be very unconscious, very unconscious. And it's like, oh no, I'm very comfortable here. And then you have people, who gain a lot of weight or they have a lot of excess weight, and then they go through the steps to let it go, right? And then it just pops right back on because I feel very uncomfortable as that person without those shields, right? Or without that excess weight. Typically look at in terms of this. And it's interesting that most, like, weight programs, loss or gain, don't even talk about this. And that is accepting yourself as you are today, as perfect. Accepting your body as a perfect message board, with gratitude, and coming to not only love for that and love for yourself, but like this gratitude that you've created such a perfect message board, right? And say, okay, well, with the gratitude for doing this, now let me look at what it is underneath that is that is not love based, that is not from unconditional self-love, that I bring this friction in within myself, right? Because if I ignore that, right? So excess weight causes other physical symptoms and issues, higher blood pressure, all kinds of, joint problems and everything else. Again, more symptoms. So it's actually more messages. Your body's like, all right, if you're going to ignore me while I'm holding on to this excess weight, well, then we're just going to create these other symptoms on top of it until it becomes so unbearable for you to live a life, in that body that you do something about it to change it. That's what we do. And so if we start with the very core of coming back to unconditional self-love, which is the core to pretty much everything I talk about, we get to this place of, it's coming to a place of saying, wow, what an awesome physicality I've created for myself to give me that message. Okay, and I can accept you for what you are because you are perfect in what you intended to be, or what I've intended to be. I've intended you to be, right? You're the physical, meaning the physical body. And as we do that, and because, people say, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. I have, a thyroid problem, or I have this. All of those are symptoms, all of them. Symptoms, symptoms, symptoms. They are not the cause. Because when you get to the cause, then you can alleviate the symptoms very easily and quickly. Bang, 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 be a domino effect and clear out. And I've seen it happen many, many times, myself and with others. So coming to a place of unconditional self-love, focusing on looking in the mirror and saying, I love you as you are right this moment. We have everything in our society and that's externalized is telling us not to do that. It's telling you, oh no, you have to lose weight. You have to da-da. You're not going to be happy until this, and look at the commercials of, oh yeah, I was so tired and I felt bad and then I lost all this weight and now I feel great. And look at how great I look and I'm happier just because of that. No, that will only be a temporary fix as long as as long as those underlying things are not addressed. They will always come back around in some way, shape, or form, and in some kind of manifestation. So you, in the depleted side, but nothing. It won't stay permanently, and it won't be easy to keep where you are if you still have underlying issues that are saying, oh, no, 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 I need to put that shield back on. Very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Self-sabotage, or no, I don't deserve to be nourished like this. This feels too good. This feels too good. You might laugh at me saying that, but that's the perception. This feels too good. Nope. Nope. I don't deserve that. A lot of times it's punishment on the depleted side, on being anorexic or just really depleted and undernourished, right? So, and we create situations in our lives that will reflect that back to ourselves too, right? Whether we are in a situation where we don't have the food available, right? Or we have the wrong kind of food that does not agree with our bodies available. We've created that to reflect back to ourselves for that core underlying issue. It's self-responsibility to the max, right? So one of the biggest things when we come to a place of consciousness and weight is looking underneath the game of, oh, well, like all these levels of, oh, well, I have extra weight because of this. Oh, because of genetics, because of this, because of that. Because, oh, I'm getting older, my metabolism's slowing down, or, oh, blah, blah, blah. We put all these excuses of victimhood into it. And my body has to break down. We can even just talk about aging in terms of that too. And say, you know what, that's our choice. Our body renews itself every, I don't know, what does it say, 7 years or something like that? Completely. Our cells die off and build new ones. We could theoretically be ageless for an extended period of time. But we've decided we have to get old, we have to be, we have to be breaking down, we have to be less vibrant, blah, blah, blah. But we can change that and get into a different place. Again, the way we allow our body to be a message board. My great-grandmother believed that in her belief system, somewhere in there, they believe that a person should is not supposed to be living here for more than 80 years. And she would say that all the time when I was a kid. I remember she lived with us. And she would talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. How, oh, the Lord's going to take me, because we're not, when I'm 80, because we're not supposed to be here for longer than 80 years. And I mean, she would say it all the time. Well, guess what? On her 80th birthday, what'd she do? She had a stroke. She died 3 weeks later. The power of our consciousness and creation is all embedded in that, right? And so these physical bodies are our message boards. And when we come to a place of unconditional self-love, when we focus on coming inside and saying, you know what, I am infinitely capable and I can change this. I can but first and foremost, I accept it as it is, as perfect and beautiful and divine and amazing, right where I am right this second. And that doesn't matter if you are 50, coming to a place of knowing that you're perfect as you are, because your body is doing exactly its job that we created for, which is to be the message board that it is. And when we start to get to that place, I mean, that takes a lot of focus in this experience, because we've gotten into such a habit of body shaming ourselves, of putting so much value on what our bodies look like. And I know many people who, like, they think that if their body's not perfect and everybody's not looking at them and drooling because their body's so perfect, then they're not worthy. And I'm just like, it's nothing to do with your physicality. And it's always a cultural expectation. It's really funny, like where we are today. Think about like in the 60s, you had the Twiggy, the model Twiggy, who was like anorexic, which started a whole bunch of anorexic. And then, but then if you look at, it's funny. I noticed one time I was in Italy and I was at an art museum and walking through, and there were so many medieval paintings and stuff like that. And I said, what's beautiful in these paintings is the women are all voluptuous and curvy. And you can tell that was, the standard then. Like they seemed very comfortable with their physical bodies, which is great. And we've gone to this other extreme of, be always having to hate ourselves and have body shame. And yeah, Gloria says the power of our mind is great. Well, the power of our consciousness is what creates, period, right? So anyway, and so all those expectations are simply expectations created through the ego, through externalization of our value, to say, okay, I'm only valuable if somebody thinks I'm sexy. I'm only valuable if somebody desires me, especially somebody of the opposite sex or somebody of the gender that I am attracted to, right? To be all inclusive. And so I'm only attractive if that happens. But when it shifts, and then, there are certain expectations culturally that we teach people. Oh, this is what you should find sexy in a person, right? But when that shifts and we get to a place of looking at our at our self-love, right? And we say, you know what? I'm awesome. My body's awesome. Look at how beautifully it gives me the message that is for me to remember right now. And look at how powerful I am, that I can change it at will and I can accept it as it is, and I can function optimally if I choose to, as I choose to. But I am functioning optimally based on what's underneath for me to look at right now. So when we do that, and we come to that place of acceptance and presence within ourselves, then you can choose at the right moment to say, you know what? I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to hold it anymore. I don't need to carry it around with me anymore. I don't need to deprive myself of it anymore. Because I love myself so much, why would I do that? And it's not that I'm hurting myself, because we use that perception with the ego. Oh, I'm hurting myself by doing that, whatever. No, you're just causing yourself more symptoms so that so you look at the message that your expanded self is giving to remember right now. But you say, you know what? I'm ready to be in my optimal, like, balance of comfort. Comfort. It's funny. There's a term called your happy weight, right? And it's not necessarily what's on the BMI charts or these scales or whatever. It's where your body feels really comfortable. Like you feel totally happy in your body. You feel and it has nothing to do with whether other people like think you're sexy or whatever. It's where you feel really comfortable and happy and vibrant, where within your body, living in your body. And when you get there, right? Or not when you get there, when you decide to be there, not get there. When you decide to be there, that's when you've like let go of all these other things that have caused you to either add the excess weight or deprive yourself of the weight that your body requires to reflect that. When you get there, or when you just decide that you're ready to be there and you're like, I don't need to do this, I can shed it, it becomes like an effortless thing. So it doesn't matter what diet you take, it doesn't matter what exercise you do, it's what you're motivated, what your guidance tells you. Oh, okay, well, this is what we're going to do now. Just shift this to be here because you're ready to be here. I'm ready to be here, right? So, I've looked at this a lot because I had a lot of excess weight that had been accumulating over the years, the last 10 years since I was doing this professionally. And I knew it had to do with some kind of feeling of balance, of expanded consciousness and feeling like anchoring down, holding how I saw it as holding the shields of different roles in our lives, right? So being a mother, being a spouse, being a certain kind of professional, all that kind of stuff. We can hold those as shields in those roles. And culturally we've had these beliefs forever. I could talk about this for like hours, but we've had these beliefs forever, like things like, oh, well, at what point that we had an culture where it was like if you were stout and you had excess weight, and you were full and curvy, then you were more wealthy and valuable in society, right? So then there's something in there from other lifetimes sometimes. Sometimes we feel like as I expand my consciousness, I have to expand my physical body to balance that out. Or we believe that, what was the one that came to me recently? It was like as all this other stuff was going on, we needed to make sure there was an anchor that stayed, right? And it's slightly different than the balance thing. But here's the thing. I went through a deep dive weekend in March with my partner in crime there on Ascended World, Sarah C. Gavignoni and Yasmin Wall. And we've been doing them quarterly, and we're starting to do them with others to help them. But, in the process of that particular weekend, I pulled out a whole bunch of things that I'd been holding inside of me. And I realized they were plugs to hold certain things in and cover it up and to further, what's the word? Get to get the word. We could, that I could further compensate for plugging certain things up because I didn't want them to come out, or I'd feel like I'd dissipate away or something like that. And then all these roles, right, that we wear as robes to hide us, to hide ourselves and our authentic self, because we have decided culturally that to fill that role is more important, makes you valuable than just being authentically you, right? So then those are the things we wear, like robes or shields, like in levels and levels. So I did this one exercise, and I literally just shed like thousands of levels of stuff that I didn't even realize I still had, because I was like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I feel something on my back. And then it was like, oh, I'm just going to start like shrugging them all off. And it was like just stuff just kept on falling off. And I want you to know that in a fairly effortless manner. Now, granted, I had like a week in there where I sort of stopped short because there was something for me to look at. But I mean, since then, I've lost 22 pounds, or not lost, I have shrunk by 22 physical pounds here on this. And it's been fairly effortless. And I don't feel like it's better or worse or anything except that it was just time and I was ready. And I was like, oh, okay, now I can just shed this. I don't need it anymore. I don't believe I need it anymore. And now I'm ready to get to that place where I'm not holding that stuff around and carrying it around with me. And by the way, thank you. Thank you so much, body, for holding that for me in a way that just put it on the shelf until I was ready to look at it and to let it go. And now it's easy. And so much gratitude for the physical body. So it's a different way of approaching the whole thing, and it really comes down to it's not, you're not going to love yourself by gaining or losing weight. You're going to find that happy place of full balance and vibrancy, whatever that is for you, as you allow yourself to love yourself as you are now, and what that is now, and how that is to shift now. And it is and it's something that we just, our mind says, yeah, but I want to get these numbers better. I want to get these numbers better. I'm going to be better when I do this, or I'm going to feel better when I do this. That's not that's all symptomatic. And when we stay in symptomatic, we never get to the core. And so we will constantly repeat and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. We'll do it again and again. We'll lose and gain, or gain and lose, gain and lose. So it's to get to that place underneath of what is it that is, that's preventing me from just loving me who I am now. Because all of that self-loathing, whether we have the excess weight or not enough, or what we feel is not enough, is, that self-loathing just gets exacerbated by that, instead of recognizing that there was self-loathing to begin with, or else all this wouldn't become a problem. Or lack, I'm not even going to say self-loathing, I'm going to say lack of self-love. So look at that this week in your consciousness. Look at that within you, where you are and what your motivations are in terms of, where do you feel like you are in the physical weight thing, and it's not by chart, not by what doctors tell you, or you are in your body now. Be present in your body. Thank your body, no matter what it looks like, no matter where it is, no matter whether you have chronic illness, chronic pain, excess weight, not enough weight, it doesn't matter. It's coming to a place of saying thank you for being here, to be that message board, so that you can help me remember what I'm holding in separation and exclusion that's preventing me from being my 100% authentic self in a space of unconditional self-love. Easy peasy, just like that. So thank you for joining me. Have a great week. This is Angela Coulter signing off with this week's Living the Shift. Have a good one.